There are tyrants in history who ruled with cruelty. There are conquerors who drowned the world in blood. There are kings who believed themselves above all accountability. But there was one man, one ruler, who looked at the heavens above him, looked at the stars scattered across the infinite sky, and made a declaration that no human being before or after him has ever dared to repeat. He said, "I am God."
I am God.
Not a messenger, not a prophet, not even a king appointed by a higher power. God himself. He ruled over Babylon, one of the greatest and most ancient civilizations the world has ever known. Cities of towering brick and rivers of gold. A kingdom that stretched to the horizon in every direction. Armies that shook the earth beneath their feet. And in the center of all of this stood one man, drunk on power, blinded by arrogance. His name, according to the majority of classical Islamic scholars and historians, was Namrud. And he would soon come face to face with a young man who owned nothing. No throne, no army, no palace. A man who carried only one thing: the truth. What happened between these two men, the most powerful king on earth and the young prophet of Allah, would become one of the most extraordinary confrontations in all of human history. A debate that left a tyrant speechless. A fire that burned everything except the man thrown into it. And a creature so small you could crush it between two fingers. That would bring down a king who believed himself to be eternal. This is the story of Namrud, the king who declared war against Allah. And this is the story of how Allah responded. To understand this story, we have to travel back, far back, into an ancient world that looked nothing like the one we know. This is the land of Mesopotamia. The land between the two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. A land of breathtaking fertility, where grain grew in abundance and great cities rose from the desert floor. Here, between these rivers, the civilization of Babylon was born. Classical Islamic historians, including Al-Tabari and Ibn Kathir, in his monumental work, Al-Bidayah wa Al-Nihaya, place the story of Namrud in this ancient Babylonian era, a time thousands of years before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the long chain of prophets and messengers that Allah sent to humanity. What kind of world was this? It was a world that had, over generations, turned away from the message of Tawheed, the pure monotheism brought by the prophets before Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam. People had replaced the worship of Allah with the worship of idols, stone statues, carved figures, celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the stars. These had become objects of devotion, of prayer, of sacrifice. And over this world of idolatry, the most powerful ruler was a king. His name, as recorded by the great classical historians, was Namrud, son of Canaan, of the lineage of Ham, son of Nuh. This lineage is mentioned in historical sources, though some genealogical details in these accounts carry varying levels of reliability, and scholars have noted differences between various historical chains. What we know with clarity is this: he was a king of extraordinary power, a king of Babylon, a man to whom vast lands and immense armies had been given. And here the Quran itself speaks. In Surah Al-Baqarah, the 258th verse, Allah says, and I translate the meaning, "Have you not considered the one who argued with Ibrahim about his Lord, merely because Allah had given him kingship?" Notice what the Quran says. Allah had given him the kingdom. This power was not his own creation. It was not the product of his own genius. It was a trust, a gift from the very God he would later deny. This is the first great irony of the story of Namrud. He used the gift of Allah to wage war against Allah. Ibn Kathir, in his tafsir, explains that Namrud became so inflated by this power, so intoxicated by the sheer scale of his dominion, that arrogance consumed his heart entirely. And what is the final destination of unchecked arrogance? The claim to divinity itself. He declared himself a god. He demanded that the people bow to him, that they worship him, that they offer him sacrifices and prayers as they would offer to the divine. And the people, afraid or deceived or both, complied. This was the world into which Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam was born. Classical Islamic historians, including Al-Tabari and Ibn Kathir, preserve reports that before Ibrahim alayhis salam was born, the soothsayers and astrologers of Namrud's court warned the king of something troubling. They told him, a boy would be born in this kingdom who would challenge the religion of his people, who would destroy the idols, who would overthrow the beliefs upon which this entire civilization rested. Whether these reports are fully authenticated or represent widely transmitted historical narrations is a matter scholars have discussed. Ibn Kathir transmits them while noting their sources. But what is established beyond doubt in the Quran and authentic narrations is the reality of what Ibrahim alayhis salam actually did when he came of age. He grew up in a land saturated with polytheism. His own father, known in historical sources as Azar, mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Anbiya 674, was not just an idol worshipper. He was a maker and seller of idols. The religion of shirk, associating partners with Allah, was not something Ibrahim alayhis salam encountered occasionally. It was the air he breathed, the world he inhabited from childhood. And yet, something was different about this boy. The Quran records for us Ibrahim's alayhis salam extraordinary intellectual and spiritual journey. In Surah Al-Anbiya 674-79, we read of how the young Ibrahim looked at the stars, the moon, and the sun, and refused, one by one, to accept them as his Lord. Each time one set or disappeared, he rejected it. This cannot be God. What sets is not eternal. What disappears is not the all-powerful. Then he turned his face, as the Quran tells us, toward him who created the heavens and the earth, a true believer. And I am not of those who associate partners with Allah. Al-Anbiya 679. This was a young man whose mind was guided to truth, whose heart had been opened by Allah, who saw through the lies and the theatrics and the polished stone faces of the idols. And he was not the kind of person to be silent about it. The Quran narrates in breathtaking detail what Ibrahim alayhis salam did next. Surah Al-Anbiya 21:51-67 tells us that Ibrahim challenged his people openly. He said to them, "What are these images you worship? What are these statues you devote yourselves to?" The people answered, "We found our fathers worshiping them." Ibrahim's response was devastating in its clarity. "Indeed, you and your fathers have been in manifest error." Al-Anbiya 21:54. This was not a quiet, private disagreement. Ibrahim alayhis salam was issuing a public challenge to the entire religious, social, and political order of his civilization. He then set a trap, or perhaps more precisely, he set a test that would expose the absurdity of what the people believed. When the people left for a festival outside the city, Ibrahim went to the temple. And there, alone among the silent rows of idols, he did something that would shake the entire kingdom. He took an axe. He destroyed the idols, all of them, except one, the largest. And he left his axe leaning against that largest idol, as if to say, "Ask your God what happened." The Quran records this in Surah Al-Anbiya 21:57-58. And by Allah, I will surely plan against your idols after you have turned and gone away. And then, so he made them into fragments, except a large one among them, that they might return to it and question. When the people returned, they were stunned. Who did this? Who dared? Some of them remembered. They had heard of this young man Ibrahim who spoke against the idols. He was brought before a great gathering. The confrontation that followed is one of the most intellectually stunning exchanges in the Quran. They asked him, "Did you do this?" He pointed to the large idol, the one left standing, and said, "Rather, it was done by this, the largest of them. Ask them if they should be able to speak." Al-Anbiya 21:63. And here, for just one moment, the people of Babylon were caught. They turned to themselves. They said, "You know these idols cannot speak." They felt the weight of the obvious. A flicker of rational thought passed through the crowd. But then it went out. Pride overrode reason. They said, "You have already known that these do not speak." Al-Anbiya 21:65. And Ibrahim, with the calm and precision of a man who already knows he is right, responded, "Then do you worship instead of Allah that which does not benefit you at all or harm you? Uf to you and to what you worship instead of Allah. Then will you not use reason?" Al-Anbiya 21:66-67. The crowd exploded. The Quran tells us in verse 68 of Surah Al-Anbiya, they said, "Burn him and support your gods, if you are to act." The sentence had been passed. Ibrahim alayhis salam would be burned alive. What happened next stands as one of the greatest miracles in the history of prophethood. Classical Islamic historians report that the people of Babylon gathered wood for days. Some narrations mention an extraordinary period of preparation to build a fire of tremendous scale. They built a structure to hurl Ibrahim alayhis salam into the flames from a distance, because no one could approach such heat, and he was thrown in. Now hear what the Quran says. In two of the most powerful words in all of Scripture, Surah Al-Anbiya 21:69, we said, "O fire, be coolness and safety upon Ibrahim." That is all. Two divine words. And the fire obeyed. Not because fire changed its nature on its own, not because of any property of physical matter, but because every element in creation, every flame, every particle, is in absolute submission to Allah. The fire that burns does so because Allah permits it to burn. The fire that doesn't burn does so because Allah commands it to be still. And it was still. Ibn Kathir, in Al-Bidayah wa Al-Nihaya, records that when Namrud and his people looked upon the fire, they found Ibrahim alayhis salam sitting within the flames, unharmed. According to historical reports transmitted by Al-Tabari and others, Namrud himself observed this with his own eyes and acknowledged aloud the greatness of Ibrahim's God. Yet, and this is one of the most painful realities of the human heart, acknowledgement is not the same as submission. He had seen the miracle. He understood what it meant. And he still refused. Now we come to the confrontation that Allah Himself has preserved in the Quran. After the fire, Ibrahim alayhis salam, according to the majority of scholars who have examined the timeline, was summoned before Namrud. Or perhaps it was the other way. Ibrahim sought an audience with the king because the message had to be delivered, because the truth had to be spoken even to the most powerful man in the world. The Quran records this in Surah Al-Baqarah 2:258, and we must sit with these words carefully. Have you not considered the one who argued with Ibrahim about his Lord, merely because Allah had given him kingship? When Ibrahim said, "My Lord is the one who gives life and causes death," he said, "I give life and cause death." Namrud's response reveals the darkest corners of a diseased soul. Ibrahim alayhis salam says, "My Lord gives life and causes death. He is the creator and sustainer of all existence." And Namrud says, "I give life and cause death." Historical reports, transmitted through Al-Tabari and others, indicate that Namrud attempted to demonstrate this claim by ordering a prisoner who had been condemned to death to be released, and ordering a free man to be executed. He looked at Ibrahim and said, "I have given life to one and caused death to another." This was, of course, not an answer at all. It was a sleight of hand, a manipulation of language, a trick. Ibrahim alayhis salam did not argue with the trick. He did not get drawn into the logical fallacy. Instead, he pivoted with the precision and grace of a man guided by divine wisdom to an argument so simple, so unanswerable, that it shattered Namrud's claim in front of everyone watching. He said, and the Quran records this in the same verse, "Indeed, Allah brings up the sun from the east, so bring it up from the west." Silence. The Quran follows this with three of the most devastating words in Arabic. Fabuhita alladhi kafar. So the disbeliever was utterly overwhelmed. Not defeated in argument alone, overwhelmed, struck dumb, unable to speak, unable to breathe a response. The greatest king in the world, the man who had declared himself a god, stood before a prophet with no army, no palace, no crown, and he had nothing left to say. The Quran ends the verse, "And Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people." You would think that this moment, this utter humiliation before his own people, would cause a man to pause, to question, to reconsider. But Namrud did not bend. And this is something that the Quran teaches us implicitly and explicitly throughout its pages. There is a kind of arrogance so deep, so structural, so woven into the very identity of a person that even the clearest signs cannot reach it. The Quran says about such people in Surah Al-Baqarah 2:7, "Allah has set a seal upon their hearts and upon their hearing, and over their vision is a veil." This is not a matter of insufficient evidence. Namrud had seen Ibrahim alayhis salam emerge from a fire unharmed. He had been silenced by a man with nothing. He had witnessed something no rational explanation could account for. And still, the veil over his heart held firm. Classical historians, including Al-Tabari in his Tarikh al-Umam wa al-Muluk, and Ibn Kathir in Al-Bidayah wa al-Nihaya, transmit reports that after his defeat, Namrud grew not more humble, but more defiant. Reports in these historical sources suggest he began to scheme, to think of ways to challenge the God of Ibrahim directly. We must be transparent here, as Islamic research requires. These subsequent reports, including accounts of Namrud attempting to reach the heavens using eagles or building a great tower to ascend to Allah, are transmitted in historical Tariq, literature, and tafsir, not in authenticated hadith chains. Scholars, such as Ibn Kathir, include them while indicating that many such accounts come through chains that contain narrators described as unknown or weak. Some exegetes have connected the story of those who built tall structures to deceive with Surah An-Nahl 16:26, though the specific application to Namrud's tower is disputed. What these reports represent, whether in their precise details or not, is a pattern of defiance that the Quran itself describes as characteristic of those who reject the truth after it has become clear to them. The man who had been shown everything still refused to surrender. Historical reports preserved in Al-Tabari's chronicles, transmitted, as the scholars note, through chains that include some unnamed narrators, speak of a remarkable episode in the final chapter of Namrud's story. According to these narrations, Allah sent an angel to Namrud. a messenger, a being of light standing before the throne of the most powerful man on earth with a simple message: submit. Worship Allah alone. Namrud refused. The angel came a second time. The same message, the same invitation. Namrud refused. A third time. A final invitation. A final chance. Namrud refused. And instead, according to these historical reports, he made a declaration that represents the absolute apex of human arrogance. He would raise an army, he said, and go to war with Allah. He would gather his soldiers. He would march. He would fight the God of Ibrahim. Now, this is where we must pause as careful scholars. We repeat, these specific reports about the angel's visits are transmitted in historical sources with chains that contain unspecified narrators. They are not narrated in the Sahih collections of Bukhari or Muslim. We transmit them as what they are: widely reported historical accounts, not authenticated hadith, and the wisdom within them, regardless of the precision of their chains, is consistent with everything the Quran teaches about the psychology of disbelief. Because what follows, what Allah did in response, is reported through these same historical channels, transmitted by scholars across centuries, and its spiritual meaning is confirmed by the Book of Allah itself. On the morning that Namrud gathered his armies, the sun rose over Babylon as it always did. His soldiers assembled, weapons drawn, banners flying. The greatest military force in that part of the ancient world, standing in formation, ready to do the impossible, ready to wage war against heaven itself. And then, out of the east, out of the direction where the sun climbs each morning, something came. Not an opposing army, not a storm, not a flood, a cloud, a living cloud, a cloud of mosquitoes. According to the historical reports preserved in Al-Tabari's chronicles and referenced by Ibn Kathir, Allah sent swarms of mosquitoes so dense and so vast that the army could not even see the sun above them. These tiny creatures, each one weighing almost nothing, each one invisible in isolation, descended upon the army of Namrud in numbers beyond counting, and they consumed them. The soldiers could not fight, could not see, could not breathe. The army of the most powerful king on earth, assembled to declare war on the creator of the universe, was obliterated, not by a rival king, not by superior technology, not by any force of human origin, by insects. The Quran speaks of the divine principle at work here, not in this specific incident, but in language that illuminates it profoundly. In Surah Al-Baqarah 2:26, Allah speaks of the mosquito, al-ba'uda, as an example He is not ashamed to use. For believers, it increases their faith. For the arrogant, it only increases their confusion, because they cannot accept that the Lord of all creation governs even the smallest things. Every creature obeys Allah, every mosquito, every gust of wind, every particle of dust. Only the arrogant human heart imagines itself exempt from that sovereignty. From Namrud's great army, the reports tell us, nothing remained. Namrud himself survived. And what happened to him next is the final, devastating, humbling conclusion to a story that began with a man declaring himself a god. According to the widely transmitted historical reports narrated by Al-Tabari and cited by Ibn Kathir, reports that have been transmitted across the centuries by Islamic scholars as part of the tafsir tradition, a single mosquito found its way to Namrud. It entered through his nose, and it reached his brain. And there it stayed. The king who had declared himself a god, the man who had silenced whole peoples with a word, who had ordered fires built and men executed, who had raised armies to wage war against heaven itself, was brought to his knees by something he could not even see clearly. The pain was unlike anything he had known. He could find no relief except when someone struck his head, hard, which would momentarily stun the creature inside. His servants would beat his head with hammers, with shoes, with whatever they had, and still, the pain returned. The greatest king in the world, helpless, begging for someone to hit him, howling from a wound no surgeon could reach. This is what the narrations report. This is what the classical historians preserved. And while we acknowledge, as honest Islamic scholarship requires, that the chain of these specific narrations is not sahih in the technical hadith sense, their preservation across centuries of Islamic scholarship, their inclusion in the works of Ibn Kathir and Al-Tabari, and their profound alignment with the Quranic teaching about Allah's power over all of creation make them worthy of transmission, with appropriate clarity about their nature. The precise details of how long this lasted, or other extended details found in some narrations, carry varying degrees of reliability and are not stated here as established fact. What is established by the Quran and by the cumulative weight of Islamic historical tradition is this: the man who declared war against Allah lost. He lost to a prophet with no army. He lost in a debate before his own people. He lost to a fire that would not burn what Allah commanded it to spare. He lost to the smallest creature Allah chose to send. And the final image we have of this man who called himself a god, is of someone unable to command even the creature inside his own skull. Ibrahim alayhi salam, the man Namrud had tried to burn, the man Namrud had tried to silence, the man Namrud had tried to destroy, left Babylon. The Quran tells us in Surah Al-Anbiya 21:71, "And we delivered him and Lot to the land, which we had blessed for the worlds." He went forth to the blessed lands to continue his mission, to build the foundations of monotheism that would one day give birth to the final revelation, Islam itself. From Ibrahim alayhi salam came the lineage of two great prophets, Ismail alayhi salam and Ishaq alayhi salam. From Ismail alayhi salam came, centuries later, the final and greatest of all the prophets, Muhammad, peace be upon him. And from Ishaq alayhi salam came Yaqub alayhi salam, who came Yusuf alayhi salam, who came the line of Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam. The entire prophetic tradition of the Abrahamic lineage, the most consequential spiritual inheritance in human history, flows from the man who walked out of Namrud's kingdom carrying nothing but truth. And what happened to the kingdom of Namrud? History swallowed it. Babylon, for all its walls of fired brick and towers that scraped the sky, is dust today. Archaeologists can excavate it. Tourists can visit its ruins. Scholars can study its inscriptions. But it is gone. The throne of Namrud is gone. The armies of Namrud are gone. The idols are gone. And the Quran, the word of the God that Namrud declared war against, is recited today by over 1 billion people on every continent of the earth. And now, thousands of years later, the story of Namrud still echoes. Not because of his palace, not because of his armies, not because of the kingdom he built, but because of the lesson his downfall left behind. A human being can reach the highest levels of power and still be powerless before the command of Allah. A person can own everything in this world and still lose everything if arrogance takes over the heart. So we want to ask you, what lesson from the story of Namrud impacted you the most? Was it the courage of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Was it the silence of a king who thought he could challenge his creator? Or was it the reminder that even the smallest creation of Allah can humble the greatest of kings? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read your reflections, and your discussions help keep these stories alive. If this documentary gave you a moment to think, reflect, or learn something new, support our work by giving this video a like. And if you want to continue exploring the greatest stories, civilizations, and lessons from history, subscribe and join us for the next journey. Because history is not just about what happened in the past. It is about the lessons Allah has preserved for those willing to reflect. Until the next story, may Allah guide us to truth, protect us from arrogance, and keep our hearts humble.